You know the voice, the one that shows up when you're about to try something.
You are not enough.
What do you think you are? The ones that arise when something goes wrong?
It is a lie. They know.
I knew you'd mess this up. The ones that compares you constantly, unfairly to everyone who seems to be doing better. Most self-improvement advice tells you the same thing. Silence the inner critic, override it, reframe it, replace it with affirmations, build confidence until the voice gets quieter. What if that's completely wrong? What if the inner critic, the harshest, most relentless voice in your head, is not your enemy? What if it's trying to protect you? And what if the reason why it's so loud is because you've never listened what it's saying? My inner critic is very loud. It has always been so loud. Even during addiction, maybe especially then, the voice was there, cataloging every failure, every mistake, every way I was falling short of the person I was supposed to be. And I did what most people do. I tried to silence it. I used substances to do it. Then after the recovery, I used productivity to outrun it. Then I used self-improvement content to reframe it. None of this worked for long because I was treating the voice as a problem. It wasn't until I actually started to listening it in therapy, in meditation, in a slower moments that the busy life keeps pushing me past. And I started to actually understand what it's trying to say me. And what it was saying was not "you are worthless." What it was saying underneath the harsh delivery was "I'm scared. I need you to be more careful." That distinction changed everything. Here's what the inner critic actually is. Psychologically, the inner critic is an internalized protective voice. It formed early, in childhood, in formative environments.
Just say it.
I can't.
It responds to experiences where something about you was criticized, corrected, rejected, or punished. And your nervous system, which is fundamentally a threat detection and threat avoidance system, decided if I criticize myself first, I won't be blindfolded by the criticism of others. If I find the flaw before they do, I can manage it, hide it, correct it in advance. The inner critic is preemptive self-defense. It was useful at the beginning, in the specific environment where you need to anticipate.
Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel. Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel.
Criticism to stay safe. The inner critic was doing an important job. The problem is that the mechanism doesn't update when the environment changes. You grew up, you changed the original environment. The people who criticized you are no longer here or no longer have power over you. But the voice still running the same protective protocol, protecting you from a threat that no longer exists in real life. Jung called this the shadow. The parts of ourselves we've rejected, suppressed, hidden, that continue to operate from unconscious with all the energy of something that has never been integrated. The inner critic is often a shadow figure, not the true self speaking, but the accumulated judgment of someone who ever told you who you should be. If that felt familiar, subscribe. Integrated, it becomes discernment.
You are the best. Keep going.
Still running unexamined in the unconscious, it becomes the voice that stops you. When you listen to inner critic carefully, not to believe it, to understand it, a specific structure emerges. The criticism is almost pointing at something real, not the verdict it delivers. That's the distortion, but the underlying concern that's often legitimate.
You are not enough.
Who do you think you are to make this video? Underneath, I'm afraid to be not so good enough and I don't want to be exposed. You are going to fail again. Underneath, last time that hurt really badly and I don't go through that again. You are behind. Everyone is further ahead. Underneath, I'm afraid that I'm wasting time and won't get to the life that I actually want. The verdict is harsh. The underlying concern is understandable and the concern, taken seriously without the hard delivery, is actually useful information to what matters to you, what you are afraid of, what needs your attention. The inner critic is just a distorted messenger. The message inside the distortion is often real. So how do you actually work with this rather than against it? First, stop trying to silence it.
Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel. Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel.
The inner critic gets louder when it's suppressed. That is the fundamental problem with every override your inner critic approach. Suppression is not a resolution. It just makes the voice quieter on the surface and louder underneath it. Instead, acknowledge it, literally, out loud if necessary.
You are doing everything right.
I hear you, I know you're trying to protect me. The acknowledgement, the simple act of being heard, reduces the intensity of voice immediately. Because the voice is trying to be heard. Give it that without giving it control. Second, translate the criticism into their concern. When the critics speak, ask one question. What are you actually afraid of? Not, is this criticism true? That question keeps you inside the verdict. What you are actually afraid of? That question takes you to the information. Write the answer. See if the concern is legitimate. If it is, address it directly. If it isn't, the clarity of seeing it usually diffuses it. Third, renegotiate the relationship. The inner critic formed a long time ago to protect a version of you that needed different things. You can renegotiate, not by silencing the voice, by updating the relationship, speaking to it the way you would speak to someone who was trying to protect you, but using methods that were no longer helping. I understand what you are doing. Thank you for trying to protect me. I'm handling it now. You can stand down. This sounds strange until you try it, and then it sounds like the right thing to say. My inner critic is still loud sometimes. Before publishing something I care about.
What is happening? I won't let this define me. Go!
Before doing something that feels exposed. Before choosing the harder path. When the easier one is available, but the relationship has changed. I don't fight it anymore. I listen for what it's actually saying. I translate the verdict into the concern, and then I address the concern or acknowledge it and keep going. The harshest voice in your head is not your truest voice, but it's not your enemy either. It's a protection mechanism that formed before you had better options, that has been doing its job faithfully for years, often at significant cost to your life. It deserves to be heard. It doesn't deserve to be obeyed. Understanding the difference, hearing the voice without being controlled by it, is one of the most important psychological skills anyone can develop. Tell me in comments what your inner critic is trying to say you. Subscribe and press like. We will go deeper in the next one. So let's rise together and have a good flight, fam.